Hey guys, it's Jason, and welcome back. Today is April the 2nd of 2022, and it's the last day of my cruise here on the Oasis of the Seas. So I want to take a minute and make a video on what it's like to cruise as a bigger person. There's not a whole lot of information out there that's at least current or up to date, and not a lot with pictures, especially or video. So I kind of wanted to kind of show you guys some of the stuff, especially in the room specifically. And I wanted to talk about some of the other activities on the ship and on the tours and stuff that you're able to do or not able to do because of your size. So let's go and get started. So let's start with some activities on the ship that you're not able to do. So first off, right outside my room is actually the rock climbing wall. Somebody my size is not able to do the rock climbing wall. I didn't see an actual weight limit posted, but I do know that the harness themselves are only go up to a certain size, so that wouldn't work for me. Another activity is the flow rider. While technically there is no weight limit on that either that I saw posted. Again, double check with Royal Caribbean on these facts, but didn't see anything posted on there. And but watching how that activity works, I don't think that I'd be able to do something like that because I have a hard time getting off the ground, and something like that where you got water pushing you around and everything, you have to get off the ground, probably not going to work. Lastly, an activity that's on board that I am not able to do, and I think this will impact a lot of cruisers actually, is specifically for the Oasis class ships, which is the zip line. So the zip line is actually right above my room, and it's a weight limit of 275 pounds. So that actually could impact quite a few cruisers, and unfortunately if you're overweight, you're not going to be able to ride that one at all due to the weight limit. Now there are some things that you can do on the cruise ship, albeit that it depends on your actual physical capability level. One of those things is actually the skate sessions. While they do want you to be in good health to do the skate session, there's technically no weight limit. I didn't do it on this ship, but in the past I've brought my own ice skates and actually skated on the ice during the skate session. And I'll say it is very hard to get up off the ground at this weight on ice skates, but as long as you don't fall, it wasn't too bad. They have other sports as well on the cruise, and again, you want to do what you're capable of doing, but stuff like basketball or volleyball on the sports deck, you can definitely do those. I didn't feel comfortable with my size to do any competitions on this ship, but I did go through and actually go up to the sports deck and just shoot some hoops around when there weren't too many people out there, and it was fun. It was nice. They also have table tennis on the cruise, and while it's not necessarily a strenuous activity, but it is an activity you can do. And I think that's something that, somebody like myself who's overweight can definitely do table tennis. So next, let's go and talk about the common areas on the ship. There's quite a few common areas on the ship that I ran into challenges, especially on this cruise. And let's start off with the public bathrooms. The public bathrooms do not have a lot of space. In fact, really none of the bathrooms do on the ship. I think the only way you're going to get around that is to go up to like a junior suite or to go to a accessibility room. I think that's pretty much the only way you're going to get to a bathroom that's actually going to be able to accommodate somebody my size. Another thing is lots of chairs in the cruise ship are actually very low to the ground and or have very narrow widths. So one of the challenges that I ran into is, for example, in Central Park, there's some chairs that have much wider widths, but they're very low to the ground and makes it very hard to get out of. In fact, I saw people that were in decent shape that were actually having trouble getting out of those chairs because they're so low to the ground. So I ended up typically having to sit on either bar stool level chairs or some metal chairs that were out there, but those have much narrower seats, which made it much more uncomfortable for me. So I actually did find a nice place to sit in Central Park. In front of Giovanni's Grill and in front of a couple other areas, they have these little wood benches that are near the tables. And so what I would do is when I'd sit out there with my parents, I would just move the table near the wood bench, sit on the wood bench. My parents would use the chairs that were there, and the wood bench was very comfortable, plenty of space. Obviously it's a bench. The only thing is there's no back support, so you are just sitting there with no back support. But for me, I'd do that all day. A very comfortable experience. The other common area I wanted to speak about was the main dining room. And really this goes for any of the dining experiences on board, not just the main dining room, but the chairs there are not very wide, and they have arms on at least the chairs that I saw. So that does lead to, again, kind of a problem with fitting into the chairs. The other issue that I ran into with the main dining room that proved to be more of a challenge is actually where the table placement is. So depending on where the table is, you have to walk around a bunch of other tables. and that can be very, very challenging at times on the ship because there's not a lot of space already in between the tables when there's nobody sitting there. And when some people are sitting there, I mean, sometimes you only have literally this much space between chairs, and when you're somebody my size trying to fit through there, it's just not going to happen. The other thing is too is when you're sitting there and you're in your chair, because there's literally this much space in between the seats. When you're sitting in there, you're going to be pushing that chair out much further than somebody else, and you're going to either be up against somebody else's chair, or you're going to make it to the point where waiter or waitress can't actually get by you, and that causes problems as well. So the way I went about this was I actually asked for tables that had a little bit more space around them, and they're pretty accommodating with that. So I also want to talk about some of the challenges that you have when you're off the ship. A lot of the tours involve boats, whether it's a catamaran, whether it's a jet ski, rhino rider, whatever you're going on. A lot of those actually have weight limits, and I was surprised to see that stuff like the catamarans had weight limits, but they did. Most of those are going to end up being around like 250 to 300 pounds. Some of them do go a little bit higher than that, but there are weight limits on most of those tours. Almost every water activity tour that I saw had some kind of weight limit, and those can be found in the app. So when you're going through and you're trying to find out what tours to do on the app or on the website, just make sure you scroll all the way to the bottom, because they'll actually list what weight restrictions there are on those tours, and they definitely won't let you on if you end up over that weight limit. So definitely be careful to watch out what you're booking there. But outside of the tours, when you go to the islands themselves, one of the things that I ran into on St. Thomas, for example, was you pull into the Royal Caribbean specific pier, and which I believe is Crown Bay, and then at that point you have to take a shuttle to the main part of the shopping area on St. Thomas. For me, I actually couldn't get into the back of the shuttle. Not that the steps are too high for me to get up, it's actually that it was too narrow for me to actually be able to fit in there. Luckily, I asked the shuttle driver, I let him know I can't get in there, and he said, hey, come up front with me, and you just have to find a shuttle that has passenger seats as well in the cab of the actual truck itself. So lastly, I want to talk about the room itself and what challenges I had in the room. So in the room, there's actually a few different things that are challenging here. Number one is the actual bathroom. But let's go ahead and take a look, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to take you on the iPhone here, and I'll show you what that looks like in there. Alright, so I'm in the shower now, and you can see if I try to fit in here even sideways, I'm basically rubbing up against the doors, and the doors are wide open right now. And then when you get in here, see if I can get an angle here that shows what it's like when I am in here. So this is me, and that's how much room I have. My back's pretty much up against the controls here, and that's literally all the room that I have to move around, which is not much. So can I do it? Yes, I have been doing it every night, but I'll tell you, this is a tight fit. Let's go and take a look at the toilet though. So this is the toilet area, and this is where I have even more of a problem, because when I sit down, you'll see here that I really don't have any room. So you can see my arm is up against the cabinet. This arm's up against the door. There's really not a lot of room to do your business, but you make it work, right? Junior Suite and higher have bigger bathrooms with a lot more space, and they also don't have these tubes. Instead, they have curtains typically, or glass doors on some of the ships. And I'd highly recommend that if you're worried about the space. If you're under 400 pounds, I'd say that this would probably be okay for you. If you're over 400, you might want to look into a Junior Suite. So moving on from the bathroom in the room, the couch itself was plenty of space. The bed was plenty of space for me, because again, I'm solo in the room, so I have the whole bed to myself, which is perfect. The only other space that really had any kind of like size concerns was the outdoor patio. There's 2 seats and a table out there. Table was fine, obviously, because it's just a table, but the 2 seats were a bit of a problem. So there's no lounge chair out there on this balcony, because it's a standard balcony. It's not a Junior Suite or a Grand Suite or anything like that. The chairs were not very wide. Now I think this is dependent on the ship, because when I was on Freedom of the Seas back in January, those chairs out there actually did fit me, and I haven't gained really any weight since then. So those chairs fit me back then, and I look back at photos on them, they were slightly different chairs. So they were a little bit wider than these, and these here are not quite as wide. And can I fit in them? Yes. Are they comfortable? Not at all. The arms are digging into my sides, and also it's a mesh fabric for the seat bottom. And I'll tell you that I'm worried about sitting on something like that. So my kind of hack for that, or trick for that, is I bring in one of those chairs and put the other one off to the side on the balcony, and I actually bring out the chair I'm sitting on now, which is the office chair, or the makeup chair, depending on what you're using the desk for, and I bring that outside. Now I'd make sure to bring it in at night so it doesn't get wet or anything like that, but when I'm watching the Aqua show, or when I'm just out there sitting on the balcony enjoying the weather, whatever it is, I'll use this chair out there, because this chair does not have any arm rails on the side, so it's pretty comfortable. The seat is also pretty padded as well, and it has a good, nice, strong back on the back of it, so it's a pretty nice chair. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about cruising as a bigger person or overweight person is a lot of people cruise for people watching. All of the ships tend to have people that people watch you and judge you and will say things and stare at you weird. For me personally, it bothers me a little bit, especially when I'm trying to build up my confidence to do vlogging and stuff like that. But what can you do about that? Not much. So it's just one of those things that you do have to be wary of when you're a bigger person cruising, is you will have people that will stare at you and you can hear them talking about you, that sort of thing. Best thing to do, these people you're never going to see again in your life, most likely, so just ignore them and move on with your day, and just enjoy your time on the cruise, so don't let that bother you very much. I hope this ended up helping you guys out with any questions you guys might have had about cruising as a larger person. Definitely, if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot them in the comments below. I'll try to answer them. Always make sure that you guys read up on what Royal Caribbean's requirements are, because the weight limits might change, they might lower or raise them, I don't know, but always check with Royal Caribbean, check on the app, check on the website, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and you guys have a great day. I'll see you soon.